The courtroom silence. The courtroom doors felt heavy, but not as heavy as the silence that greeted me when I walked in. On the right side of the aisle sat my soon-to-be ex-husband, Mark, flanked by his wealthy parents, his siblings, and a high-priced attorney who looked like he had never lost a day in his life. On my side, there was only me. No lawyer, no entourage, just a single manila folder clutched tightly against my chest. When I took my seat at the petitioner's table alone, a distinct, muffled chuckle echoed from the rows behind Mark. I turned slightly and saw his mother whispering to his sister, both of them smirked with utter amusement. To them, this was a comedy. They thought I was a lamb walking straight into a slaughterhouse. Mark wouldn't even look at me, he just adjusted his expensive suit, confident that his family's money and legal firepower were about to erase me from his life with absolutely nothing to my name. For 5 years, they had treated me like an outsider, an inconvenience who wasn't worthy of their family status. When the marriage fell apart due to Mark's infidelity and financial deceit, they cut off my access to our joint accounts overnight. They thought that by starving me out financially, I wouldn't be able to afford legal representation, forcing me to sign whatever unfair settlement they threw at me. They truly believed my decision to represent myself was an act of desperate foolishness. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes named Justice Eleanor Vance, entered the room, and the court came to order. Mark's attorney stood up first, his voice dripping with smooth confidence. He painted a picture of a failed marriage where I was portrayed as a gold digger looking for a handout, demanding assets I supposedly had no right to. He presented beautifully bound financial statements, claiming Mark's businesses had suffered massive losses and that there was simply no money left to divide. He concluded his opening statement with a patronizing glance toward me, suggesting that out of mercy, they would offer a meager, insulting lump sum just to end the proceedings quickly. Behind him, his family nodded approvingly, another wave of quiet, arrogant laughter rippling through their row. Then, the judge turned her gaze to me. The court will now hear from the petitioner. You may proceed. I stood up. My hands trembled for a fraction of a second, but as I looked at the smug smiles on the faces across the room, the fear vanished, replaced by an icy, unwavering resolve. Thank you, Your Honor, I began, my voice clear and carrying through the room. The respondent's counsel has provided a very compelling fiction. But I am not here to argue with stories. I am here to present the ledger. I opened my single manila folder. I didn't have a legal team, but what I did have was 5 years of meticulous, exhausting bookkeeping that I had done in secret, and a degree in forensic accounting that Mark's family had always dismissed as a silly little hobby. Your Honor, the defense claims that Mark's primary logistics firm went into deficit over the last 18 months. However, they have submitted the domestic tax filings, not the corporate holdings managed through a shell company registered under his mother's maiden name. The laughter behind Mark instantly died. The smirk on his mother's face froze. I handed a set of documents to the bailiff to pass to the judge. If you look at Exhibit A, you will find the transaction history of an offshore account routed through the Cayman Islands. Over the last year, exactly $3.2 million were transferred from our joint marital accounts into this hidden entity. These transfers were authorized solely by the respondent, without my knowledge or consent, deliberately hiding marital assets in anticipation of this divorce. The high-priced attorney rapidly stood up, his face flushed. Your Honor, this is completely unsubstantiated. The petitioner is throwing wild accusations without proper discovery. It is entirely substantiated, I replied calmly, looking directly at the judge. Exhibit B contains the certified banking routing numbers, IP addresses tracking the transfers to Mark's personal laptop, and the signature pages matching the respondent's handwriting. Furthermore, Exhibit C shows that the losses his business supposedly suffered were actually fabricated invoices paid to a consulting firm owned by his own brother, who was sitting right there in the gallery. The courtroom went dead silent. The silence was so heavy you could hear the soft hum of the air conditioner. I looked back at Mark's family. The smirks were entirely gone. His sister was staring at the floor, his brother looked terrified, and his mother's face had turned completely pale, her jaw slightly open. Mark was frantically whispering to his attorney, sweat visibly breaking out on his forehead. The attorney himself was desperately flipping through his own papers, his smooth confidence shattered in a matter of minutes. For the next 20 minutes, I systematically dismantled their entire defense. I presented clear, undeniable proof of hidden real estate properties, undisclosed investments, and a timeline of financial fraud designed to leave me destitute. I didn't emotionalize, I didn't cry, and I didn't yell. I let the cold, hard numbers do the talking. Every time Mark's lawyer tried to object, Justice Vance overruled him, her attention entirely locked onto the evidence I was presenting. When I finally finished, I closed my folder and looked squarely at Mark. Your Honor, I am not asking for a handout. I am asking for an equal, lawful distribution of the true marital estate, which the respondent has illegally attempted to conceal. Justice Vance looked over her glasses at Mark and his legal team. Her expression was terrifyingly calm. Counsel, she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife, do you have a response to these exhibits? Because right now, it appears your client has committed perjury and systematic asset concealment. The lawyer opened his mouth, closed it, looked at the pale, trembling faces of Mark and his family, and finally said, We request a brief recess to consult with our client, Your Honor. Granted, the judge said, striking her gavel. And I suggest you use that time to rethink your strategy, because if we proceed to trial on these facts, your client will be facing criminal referrals. As the judge walked out, the silence in the room remained unbroken. Mark's family, who had arrived laughing and treating my life like a joke, sat completely paralyzed. They didn't say a word. They wouldn't even look at me as I neatly packed my documents back into my single folder, stood up, and walked out of the courtroom with my head held high. They thought they could break me because I was alone, but they forgot that the truth doesn't need an army to win.